Hello and welcome to EduCurious, where we highlight exceptional educators and dive deep into complex issues. Today's guest is Katherine Lamar. She is a curriculum specialist at Warner University. So welcome, Katherine. I am so glad to have you on the show.
I am so glad to be here.
So I want to pick your brain. You have so many interesting things that you do overall at the university, but your specialty is curriculum. And I want to hear why curriculum is so vital to an educational journey.
Let's start out with the definition of curriculum because there's two basic definitions, the textbook definition and what we as teachers just talk about when we're sitting down for coffee. So for the textbook definition, curriculum is the set of standards that organize the knowledge and skills that we want to teach our students. Imagine them as a constellation of stars. These are the things that are going to guide what happens in the classroom. The knowledge we want the students to collect, the skills we want them to practice. So we don't want to just take them on a journey, wandering around into a new country that they've never been, and a different subject, a different practice. We want to have it very much guided. We don't want them to be tourists, more venevitevice. We want them to come to see and to conquer. We have things for them to do, for them to achieve. Or if that's a little bit too militaristic, we have Pokemon we want them to collect, wisdom, little stickers that we want them to get along the way. And those little points of light, those points of interest on your map, that is the curriculum that should be guiding your particular instruction. Now, that's the textbook definition. But when we just talk about it, when you hear teachers talking about it, they're talking about lesson plans we've found, the unit that we're developing. This is the things that you write down on paper, stick in a binder, and stick behind you, and then bring out when you're going to do instruction. So the practical use of curriculum is all my lesson plans, all my units, and all my assessments that I'm using. So this is more, in textbook speak, the instruction portion, and curriculum is the standards portion. And these two things are married. So curriculum, all the standards you choose, and the instructions, how you develop it, really are the core to what we do in the classroom. If we are going to be going on this learning journey with our students, we're the guides. When we step into the classroom, we have a blank map. The little points of light are those points of interest we put on the map, but we can't just leave it there because we have to create this journey. And you can't create journey just with, oh, I want to go to Prague and I want to go to Stockholm and I want to see the Eiffel Tower. There's a little bit more to that process. It's part of your planning before you step into the classroom. And part of that process is for us creating a scope and sequence. So a scope, here you have your map. The scope is all of the little points of light, everything that you want your students to come and visit. Your scope is prioritizing. You have to prioritize which ones are high level. You've got to do this based on your data. Oh my goodness, they don't know anything about the Berlin Wall. We are definitely going to Berlin. Highlight that particular standard. And which ones are lesser. So it's a process of prioritizing which standards. Anybody who's ever been to see Palms has seen the massive amount of standards. These are all the places that you can take your students, all the skills and the knowledge that the government would love for your students to learn. You, as the teacher, still have to prioritize them. You have to have a scope. After you prioritize them, well, how are you going to get there? You're on this journey. Are we going to go to Spain first? Are we going to start at Jerusalem? Where are we going to start? That's your sequence. What comes first, second, etc. Part of this sequence with these standards, the set of standards, is deciding, am I going to cram a whole bunch of standards into one day? I'm going to get 6 standards in one lesson, or I'm going to spend a lot of time on 2 standards, like a couple of weeks on 2 standards. It's deciding how long you're going to spend it and how you're going to cluster it, and the direction, which one is going to come first in your learning journey. And so that's how scoping and sequence happens. And that's the planning stage. So that's how you're starting to create your learning journey. After that, what I would suggest is, instead of moving directly into creating your lesson plans, how you're going to do it. I want a boat, I want a train, I want a pogo stick, and I want a big humongous parade at the end. That's how you do it. Instead of doing that, my suggestion and suggestion of a lot of research is you take your standards, your set, you then move to your objective. This is the bridge between standards and assessment. It's your little snippet of how you're going to help your students conquer those particular standards. Everybody knows what an objective is. My students will compare and contrast World War I and World War II, that's your content, using a Venn diagram, that's how you're going to do it, with 80% accuracy. In Florida, that 80% accuracy is our mastery level. So at a very boiled down point, if you are just giving your assessment as a normal quiz, then you're going to have 5 questions that cover that standard, and they have to get at least 4 right. Those could be binary, true, false. They can be multiple different questions. But in order to prove to yourself and your students that they have mastered and conquered this particular standard, you just need to make sure that they got that 4 out of 5. Okay, after you've got your map, curriculum map, you've got your objectives, the next step is suggested to be create your assessment. This is known as assessment influenced instruction. Other people call it backwards creation of lesson plans, but it's really helpful because you need to know how are your students going to demonstrate evidence of learning. Assessment is not a punishment. It's not supposed to be a punishment for you. It's not supposed to be a punishment for them. Sometimes it feels like it, but it's supposed to be evidence of learning that they can see, that you can see, that your boss can see. And it's just helping you. Another way to identify assessment is it's a decision-making tool. It helps your students decide, hey, I'm doing really great here, or I need a little bit more help. I need to change the way that I learn this. Helps you decide what to teach next, especially that formative assessment. So after that, you've got curriculum, objective, assessment, the direction you're going. And that assessment can be many different things. Finally, after you've got the assessment, then you can go into instruction and create your lesson plans, what we usually talk about as curriculum, your units. And so the importance of curriculum is it is the foundation, it's the start, it's your constellation, and it's what you as a teacher, you produce to help guide your students on that learning process.
Talk about your area of expertise within curriculum development. You are working on a really big grant project right now. So I want to hear a little bit about that and what has launched your career into really embracing curriculum as your full-time passion.
So this is the second grant that I've worked on with Warner, and my passion is social studies. I started out as a social studies teacher, and then I went and got my gifted endorsement over at William and Mary. So I've always been interested in creating those outline guidelines for learning. I love history. I love psychology and sociology, how people interact. And I love sharing that with students, creating learning experiences that open up. Here are narratives. Let's hear people in their own voice. Let's explore these different worlds that used to be and are no more or are continuing, and explore the interaction, the knowledge and skills that the people back then needed that we can use today and we can consider using for ourselves in the future. So for curriculum, most of where I launched was really William and Mary in Virginia. I was really privileged to go and spend a year working at the Center for Gifted Education, where we specifically focused on curriculum for gifted students, which is qualitatively different from curriculum for general students. When you're dealing with students at the margins, both sides of the margins of the bell curve, it is going to be very different. We did a lot of work on critical thinking. I did some research on third culture kids, seeing how they reacted to curriculum. I sold a lot of curriculum and helped develop it with the team there. I'm one of those strange people who I write curriculum for fun. If I get inspired, I see this really awesome artifact, or I see this really interesting thing that I don't know about, or I'm like really inspired by a video I've seen, my automatic reaction is, ooh, I need to make a lesson plan. This would be great for a unit. Let me format it in a way where it can be delivered to students so that they can share the experience and also really stimulate their critical thinking at the same time so they can see deeper. Because critical thinking helps you get below the surface and get really into different perspectives, not only developing your own processes of thinking, but seeing how beautiful and how layered the world is, this beautiful tapestry that we're moving through, and being able to appreciate it a lot more. I hadn't been able to use my curriculum experience from William and Mary much until I got to teach at Bach for a little while. And when I got here, where they noticed, "Oh, you know how to do curriculum." And it's like, absolutely. I love to make things beautiful. And really dig deep into that critical thinking component and help draw it out into the experience.
Tell me a little bit about that component of your job right now, the curriculum expert side at Warner University.
The current grant is for about 4 to 5 booklets for social studies for 4th and 5th graders. Our first one we're working on is for the Yamato colony, which was a Japanese colony in the turn of the century down in South Florida. And what we're looking to do is to identify narratives, primary sources that we can share with the students, tie it in with 4th and 5th grade standards, and really go across the curriculum of English and science, because they were farming pineapples, which is very exciting, I think. And they were going through different phases. They went through the Depression, they went through World War II, and their experiences are very rich, and they can be used to teach the standards that we have, but also to get to voices we haven't heard before. And so we went on a research trip to go and collect primary sources there. The grant is also with the Library of Congress. So we're basically going in and mining artifacts from the Library of Congress, which takes a while to find just the right thing to teach what we're trying to teach. And put that into a booklet form. After we create the booklet and we create quite a few different lessons, we're going to choose a 45-minute lesson. And then we're going to go into different classrooms and we're going to test that out, because really good curriculum needs testing. If you've ever taught a lesson and something's fallen flat and something's been amazing, you're writing anecdotal notes in the side, which is wonderful. The same thing here. We want to make sure that the product that's coming out, this experience that the students have and that the teacher have, are very rich, and all the questions, all the little snags that might come up are addressed and things are made better. So we go and teach that in about 4 or 5 different classes, take notes on that. Sometimes we video it to see what works, what didn't, go back to the drawing board and improve it. The last time we did something like this, we did the Dade Massacre, which deals with the Second Seminole War and a battle that took place. And we had the students reading the 2 different narratives, one from the federal side and one from the Seminole side. Beautiful side by side of the same event. And after we had taught that, we asked students what they wanted. They wanted to know what happened before this. What happened to Alligator, one of the chiefs? What happened to Private Ransom after he survived? He was the lone survivor. And so we added that in. The teacher had questions. And so after we created the booklet, we taught it, we created the teacher edition, which deals with a lot more extensions, background, and addressing all those questions that naturally and organically come up, so that the teachers are prepared to teach the lesson and can go further into the social studies aspect, into the English aspect, into the art aspect, because we also had this wonderful extension where the students looked at a portrait of Osceola, primary source document from the time, and then they drew a picture of Osceola using words that described him and different steps and little details. And they said they really loved that particular part, because you're taking 2 different concepts, different subjects, you're integrating them together, and that transference really makes ownership happen for the students and makes the knowledge and the skills just light up like fireworks, which is what we're really trying to do as educators.
What is your advice to teachers when it's that time of year where they get together, maybe by grade level, and collaborate and try to vet and then choose a particular curriculum for the school year? What are some things to look for? What's been your experience in successful vetting and implementation of a new curriculum in a school system?
Well, the first thing is getting together. You need to get together. You need to make your teacher friends, and you need to hold them close, and you need to be collaborating. It's all well and good to have a little framework like depth of knowledge stuck to your wall. But in a lot of different places, I've seen that's all that happens with it. It is a much better use of your time to spend time with your colleagues developing a project that crosses lines between grade levels, crosses lines between your subject areas, makes that transference better, and it also increases the complexity, which is what DOK wanted in the first place. But when you're taking a look at curriculum and deciding which one to choose, well, we have two different pathways. One pathway is very resourced. You get to choose, you can choose anything, you have all the resources to do it. If you have that, I would suggest, number one, knowing the passions of the teachers you have. Every teacher has that spark, that reason why they are a teacher, something they really want to share with the students. And so government standards are not the end all be all. They have something they want to share too, and that spark should be honored because that's their strength and that's where their excitement and their joy comes from. So identifying what you absolutely want to be teaching. If you have a history teacher whose their thing is Civil War reenactment, that needs to be in the curriculum. If you have a teacher whose passion is just, I love to read. Yeah, I'm in math, but I love to read. Having a time for reading in the classroom needs to be a priority, because if you snuff out that little spark, well, it's hard to exist when you're still trying to get by in the dark. So making sure your passions are found. If you have all the resources in the world and you're looking at textbooks, make sure that the textbook does what you want it to do. A lot of people just adopt what they can with the resources they can. They get a set of textbooks that somebody else gave away. Make sure if you are teaching a foreign language, make sure that the questions are what you want them to be. This textbook should be enriching the curriculum, not driving it. The teacher drives the curriculum, but textbooks are very helpful for letting the student do those questions by themselves. It's very helpful instead of the teacher having no textbook and going, what am I doing today? Let's go and attack the internet and say, Internet, what shall I do today? Chat GPT, make me a lesson for this now. That's not going to work. In that case, having a textbook to help guide you through, one that has good questions, that's at the right reading level, perfect. Now, you are going to have students in your class that come in different reading levels. You're going to have your ESOL students. In that case, I suggest using Nucella and things like that change the reading level of different articles. Those are wonderful tools. Having those magazines, great investment. Magazines for science, scholastic magazines for English, humongous investment. Every time I teach, the students collect those. They keep them and they read them over and over again, which if you want the knowledge to stay, reiteration is going to help it stay. So do not forget or downplay the use of scholastic magazines for students, especially if you don't have textbooks, because they need a text to be interacting with there and at home. Let the gifted kids accelerate as much as you can. That's one, if you have resources. If you do not have resources and you're asked to, okay, what are we doing this year? You have the internet, but you should also be looking for primary sources to help guide you. Right now, primary sources are extremely trendy, and with the internet, you have more access to them. The Library of Congress has amazing resources for you. You can get a picture, create a lesson talking about everything in that picture as an introduction, and then go into the content that you want to teach. But mostly it's people. You need to be working with your people more than textbooks, more than the internet, more than really good platforms like Teaching with Primary Sources, TPS. You should be working with your people.
What are some really important things that if you are narrowing down 3 different curriculums that a group of educators need to go cross-check just to make sure they're not getting sold snake oil?
You can use the expertise of the people you have. I know for a social studies textbook, I am really fascinated with Ethiopia and that particular culture. So for that textbook, I have an expertise there. I'm going to go and look for that place my expertise is in to check that it works and that it fits. Your teachers are experts. Most of them know what they're looking for. You have some great mentor teachers. Make sure that you have a glossary with your ELL students and all of your readers. Having that glossary in the back is a lifesaver. You don't have to go and make it yourself. I personally also look for the questions that they have in the textbook. If you have a textbook with no questions or with questions that don't really meet the standards you're looking for, because Florida has standards, some of them change a little bit, but making sure that the questions that they're asking are actually meeting the Florida standards That should be a really big red flag. They should have the standards listed. This is going to help the teachers when they're writing their lesson plans, or they can just say on this page and list the standards. If there are no standards, that's no good. If they have no questions, that's no good. If the questions are difficult to read, that also can be a barrier to students. If your pictures are not adequately captioned, that's not helpful to you either. This is going to be a tool that you're using. It's not going to drive you. You should be driving the textbook. The textbook doesn't drive you. But you have to make sure that it's meeting the standards and it's accurate. And for that accuracy, you need your experts weighing.
So I want to hear a little bit about you, your background, some of your pivotal moments, and some of the things that you're really proud of. So can you walk us through memory lane? Tell us who Katherine Lamar is and just some things that you would like to share with others.
Well, I am an Air Force brat. So I grew up in lots of different places. My mother's English. I was born in Germany. So I'm from everywhere, nowhere, here right now. And that really shaped my understanding of people, or my lack thereof, because different cultures, when they interact, they have different norms. And I wanted to figure it out. And that's what made social studies such a fascinating field for me to go into. And once I got to college, I wanted to be a teacher because teachers are creators of worlds. You get to create your world and your culture in your classroom. You get to share amazing things about the world outside and help people develop skills and equip themselves. And that was really a big passion for me. But I got to the end of Stetson, my undergrad, and I was like, I can go further. I'm really interested in third culture kids. I'm really interested in gifted kids and how I can create lessons that meet their needs. And you don't know what you don't know until you don't know it. And so going into William and Mary and taking that year to really focus on curriculum for gifted kids illuminated the vast differences between how best to teach gifted and how it differs from teaching other types of students, and really sparked that interest in more research. I was really interested in more research, and I really got a great opportunity to go to England and to study at Cambridge University for another year. And I was looking at philosophy and the IB program and how the IB program developed identity in students, and what type of identity different curriculums develop in students, how they see themselves, how they talk about the world, how they interact with the world. So I spent a lot of time looking at that and all the different types of philosophies, because England has gone through so many different educational philosophies. You just say, okay, which year, this is what they did, this is what worked, this is what didn't, and the difference between curriculum in a foreign country, which focuses more on the end, summative assessment, versus curriculum in the United States, where we're interested in all the little parts of assessment moving up. I came back to Florida and worked at lots of different things. I worked at charter schools. I worked with ESE students. I got married. We moved to Scotland, where I got to work with a little Christian school. It was a one-room schoolhouse, and working with curriculum in math and social studies and English all the way through with them in a different culture, and seeing the differences and being able to help in a different way. And all the time writing curriculum in the background, got inspired. Oh, what actually works with anti-bullying? That's interesting. Let's really delve into the power dynamics there and create curriculum that upholds it. Came back to Florida, and I've been working here ever since, and for about the past 3 years over at Warner, developing curriculum. It's not just curriculum for the academy. I also really enjoyed writing some curriculum for the Jewish feasts. So our family, we follow the Jewish festivals. And so for my children, as well as myself, I've taken those 7 festivals and written curriculum, primary sources, activities that we've been using for about the past 8 years, and expanding that and then sharing it with anybody who's interested in joining us for the feast. So this past Passover, we had quite a few people, about 30 or 40 people, come over and share Passover with us. Lots of kids, lots of education, and sharing over a meal, because that is the best type of lesson, one that includes a celebration and food. I don't think you can get any better than better than that. So that's where I am. and my journey, which has never stopped, and I hope will continue for many years to come.
What are your goals and dreams for the next 5 years?
I want to continue working in curriculum and in the schools wherever I can, being an itinerant teacher, fill in the gaps where I'm needed. It would be nice to continue expanding teaching here at Warner, opening up the eyes of pre-teachers to the possibilities and helping them practice before they get into the classroom on that first day, so that they feel confident when they walk in to be able to say, I can do this. I have a bunch of tricks in my back pocket. I know my standards. I know the map that I have, and I'm going to take my children on this journey. And it's going to be a really exciting journey, not wandering haphazard, but planned and finding those exciting little details that don't only appeal to the government, but also appeal to me and will also appeal to the students, because we really do teach students more than we teach subjects. And they're interested in stuff too. And making that little space for choice in the curriculum is really helpful for their learning, for their knowledge, for their skills, but also for their excitement, because it's a beautiful world out there and they should be interacting with it and be able to see all that beauty happening.
If you could sort of summarize or capture your passion, your spark in just a brief description, could you share that with us?
Besides all the standards, I have my own standards that I teach in every single class I step into. I'm hoping to share with my students knowledge and skills. And one of those is be the hero. The idea that heroism is something that has been identified through research, through psychological research. Who are the heroes in our life? Who are the people who stand in the gap? Who are the people who are adventurous enough to step out of the crowd and help when the entire crowd is silent, or when the entire crowd turns against somebody? Who's going to step up and start a new group, a heroic group, to help those who are in need in the middle? How do we overcome this system, this theater where we all step into the role of target and victimizer and bully and bystander at some point in our lives? How do we overcome that particular system and be a hero in the process? I'm also interested in helping students develop critical thinking, actual critical thinking, and an appreciation of that, so that they can look at something and not just have a question, not just give the first answer and be happy with that first answer, but to see more about that question, to see the concepts that are tied to that question, the underlying assumptions, to see consequences, positive and negative consequences tied to this question. Basically, to be able to see Richard Paul's structure of thought whenever they look at something, because I want them to move from more of a, I've got three colors, the primary colors that I see everything with, to, okay, there's more color than that. There's more depth to that. There's more strings attached to that. And the more colors you see, the more depth, the more layers you see, the more beautiful and meaningful everything becomes. And right now, in a climate where so many people are becoming unhappy and depressed because they don't see meaning in their life, they only see three colors. They don't see all of this nuance. Being able to show different colors and show them how to see it, how to unravel it, how to see the layers, to see the beauty in what's in front of them, that's going to give them more meaning. I'm going to stand with Mr. Rogers' mother, who, when he talked to her, when he was little, he was watching the television and he saw some terrible things happening. And what his mother told him was, look for the helpers. Don't focus on the terrible thing. Look for the people who are helping. Look for the people who are bringing light. Look for the people who are bringing beauty to the situation. Look for the heroes. And I think when we change our focus from trauma to beauty, when we change it from oppression to victory, when we change it from just looking at the system to stepping into that system and choosing a different role other than bystander, I think there's more cure in those actions than merely labeling and seeking awareness of something that is not as beautiful as it could be. I mean, I really believe, I'm so glad that we live in Lake Wales, where we have Bok Tower Gardens. And Bok was saying, let's leave the world a bit more beautiful for having lived in it.
Who have been some of the heroes or the helpers that have really influenced your life?
Well, I can say that Career-wise, Donna Dunson has been a point of hope in my life. I believe that Donna Dunson provided the model for a administrator who valued teachers enough to give them space to be entrepreneurs, to give them space to be flexible and try out new things, to give them space. You've got the priorities right. You've given us space to be creative. You've given us value that we're experts in our field, and you've given us time to be the people that we potentially can be, and also the time for the students, allowing the students to get the microphone. That really stands up in my memory. We had a really big issue regarding bullying one year, and instead of doing the normal thing that administrators do, which is stand up with a microphone, hog the microphone, give it to the local police officer to shout at the children, and then wonder why everything continues to go the same way that it has gone previously, she took the microphone and she said, we as a community have a problem. I'm going to give this microphone to somebody she's talked to already, another student who wanted to confess that they'd been doing bad things and to apologize. And then the microphone is given to the target who gets the opportunity to forgive them and to have that reconciliation. Now that takes guts because it takes risk. And it was a long time, and the teachers got on it too. Teachers who had experienced it shared their experiences with the kids and their stories of overcoming. And so it really built that community in a way I've never seen before, allowing the voice to be heard in a guided way for the purpose of moving away from bullying towards forgiveness and towards an understanding you do really have a voice and you will have a voice in this particular community. And having that voice is so important. Being able to listen to that voice, even if it's for 2 to 5 minutes, a teacher sharing their passion or sharing what they've done. So important, that recognition and the guidance there. So she was a really big model and hero in my particular journey.
Over your years and your career, what is something that stands out that really is something that you did? It could be a tangible award or something that you know you really did a great job on. What are some of those highlight moments or experiences, a couple that you would like to share?
Well, I think it was a mutual thing between me and the students. So one year I did a magazine where I had the students, end of the year, they created their own short stories. They created poetry based on what we'd learned. And we created a book that really highlighted their best work, and we sold it. And I still have loads of copies because I made so many. Make so many. But that's really a highlight of not only being able to plan it, make it happen in color, but get it to the students and be able to share it with my colleagues. That's something that I really, I value that. And I value that experience because you don't always get that experience. You don't always get that time to be able to make something like that.
Are there any things, any final closing thoughts or things that you would like to share with the audience of educators? Maybe something that you've experienced that you could help impart knowledge to them, or any closing words of wisdom?
When you're creating your lesson plan, make sure you have your constellation of standards ready. Rubrics are your friends, so make sure that you have an understanding and you're comfortable with your rubrics. And know that you are flexible. Give place for your spark and be flexible. So when you go and you've planned something amazing and not all of it flies off and is a good learning experience for everyone, you can change. Transformation is possible. Keep those little anecdotal notes on the side because those are really going to hone you and improve you as a teacher. So don't give up, and don't give up on your spark.
What a beautiful conversation. I really appreciate you being on our show today. Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us today. And whether you're a teacher, a parent, or just EduCurious, join the community as we explore various educational topics and learn from each other. We'll see you next time.